It was absolute madness. Made loads of mistakes, things that we learned from a lot because it was our first thing like internationally, and everything over there works very, very different. Our pricing model was probably not appropriate. It was probably too cheap, which is why we got so many children. But we made a significant amount of money for being age 23 and still being at uni. And then from then, just out of pure coincidence, like there was a head teacher that came and brought his child from another local school, but that was an international private school. And he was like, what you are doing is amazing. He was English. He was the only English person we saw all summer. And he was like, you're amazing. Like, I love what you're doing. So he got us a meeting in with the like directors of that school. And then we took that school, and then that led to a lot of other things in terms of expansion. Within that was like an international schools group. So then we picked up schools from all over the world from being recommended. But once we'd got in that one, it was like, right now we can pick schools up in Malaga and Barcelona and Madrid and like everywhere.
From Coordinate Sports, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guests this episode are Kerry Goodacre and Stacey Dean, founders of ClubsComplete. Whilst training as translators and linguists, Kerry and Stacey launched ClubsComplete at the tender age of 17 years old and have gone on to build further businesses around their passion, scaling their operations to 5 businesses in the activities, education and property sectors. During the episode, we discussed the origin story of the company, overcoming a manager leaving the business and replicating their model, and how they bounced back and thrived. As well as sharing the benefits of being in business and working together as siblings, the duo also give their advice on entrepreneurs looking to expand into the UAE. We also hear how they have developed their teams to empower them to handle the day-to-day running of the businesses. A must listen for all sports coaching business owners and entrepreneurs. Enjoy the show. Okay, so I'm really excited to welcome Kerry Goodacre and Stacey Dean, founders of ClubsComplete. The children's activity and education provider, works with over 170 schools, runs over 1,200 clubs, and also works with 18,000 children every year. Welcome to the show, Kerry and Stacey.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for having us.
No, I'm excited. I'm mentioning before we recorded about kind of the your story, and I'm really interested. I know a lot of our listeners will be I guess, on the edge of their seat when they hear it all, but it's slightly different. I'm going to, knowing your skills, this interview is going to be in English, so is that okay? Obviously,
yeah, that's fine. That works.
Kind of nice and simple for me. Like we always do on the show, we try and let our listeners have a bit of an insight and get to know you a little bit better before we try to dive into your story. So if we went back to school and talked about maybe your experience of school, obviously given that you're in the sector and delivering such a great service at the moment, how did you find it? What was your school experience?
I mean, we had quite a good school experience, to be fair. The things within mainstream school in the UK in general, which we've kind of realised like a little bit later on, is that it's very, like the curriculum can be quite, rigid in terms of if somebody maybe is not that good at academic and maths or English and science, which obviously are the core subjects that they're kind of getting graded on within like primary schools, it may become quite difficult for them and kind of like demotivating for them. So that's why we kind of went down the route that we did in terms of like looking outside of the curriculum, what we could offer to children to kind of engage them. Because the school that we went to actually was like required improvement by Ofsted, the primary school. So They actually didn't offer really any subjects apart from like the actual core ones, because they needed to get everyone's grades really kind of improved on those 3 core subjects. So there wasn't really anything else offered. And if it was 1 hour here and there. So for people that weren't that engaged with the core curriculum, it was really, really difficult. And we went to school with quite a lot of people that, came out of it with, and kind of demotivated towards to going to secondary school and upper school. And when we went to school, obviously there was an option to leave school at 16 and everyone, kind of did that we went to school with, because they just wanted to get into the working world and, try other things, because it was kind of like demotivated by not being able to try anything else. Whereas the primary schools that we work with now, there's a lot more on offer for the children. But again, you need to kind of provide that enrichment for them, because there's not, sometimes they don't engage with a certain sport or engage with, maybe they're really interested in coding or ICT and that's not available within that school, or they may be really artistic, that's not an offer for them. So that's what kind of gave us the passion to do this.
Yeah, was that your experience? And obviously for the listeners as well, and for those people who don't know you, identical twins. So we're coming up in school. Were you kind of interested in the same thing? Was it that experience in terms of you were looking for that enrichment opportunity or activity, not really academically minded, or maybe?
Yeah, so we're both, obviously, like you've already said, like our skills are within languages. So our school didn't offer languages as part of the like core curriculum. So we kind of didn't like almost like find our talents or skills within that until like later on. So we actually went up to GCSE level because it wasn't offered. So we actually, our parents paid for us to go to like additional, like outside of the curriculum classes of French, even from primary school. And that's how we kind of found that and kind of geared in towards the language route, because we weren't that engaged either within that, you know, the core curriculum subject. So we were very lucky. We went to a really good secondary school and they offered, like there was a language college, so they offered so many different languages.
Right, so not the classic like French and German, it was... So we were actually able to study 2 languages alongside each other. So we did French because obviously we had that experience, but we were also able to pick Spanish up. And our Spanish teacher was absolutely amazing. And I really do think it was obviously we're advocates for it now, but you know, with any subject, if you've got a good teacher, you can really get into it. And we did in a very big way. We went on Spanish exchanges. We had Spanish exchange students actually coming here, staying with our families as well. And then we just continued with that Spanish and built on it. And we both went to university to study Spanish. I went to Salford University in Manchester. Kerry went to UEA. I did Spanish and Italian at university. Kerry did Spanish translation and media. And then after that, qualified translators. And just a question on that one. You know, obviously, and it's almost like, not coincidence, obviously, but that inspiration going to a language college, would you have gone down that route anyway if you'd just gone to a school that was maybe a technology college or a sports technology? Do you know?
No, perhaps not.
You must be the poster children for that school, right?
Yeah. There's 2 options of schools, and the other option didn't have the languages on offer. So I don't think it would have been possible for us to continue with. I mean, our mum's quite an advocate for languages. She speaks Spanish and French, and our dad was the CEO of a huge company, and he actually had like interpreters because he couldn't speak German. So he was also an advocate for getting into languages because it was costing him a fortune. So he was also an advocate for it. So no, I don't think perhaps we would have gone into languages. And when we came, we wanted to come back home. Both wanted to come back home. I was a translator for Manchester City Council, and we wanted to come back to Leicestershire. And there isn't much in the way of languages in Leicestershire. There isn't much. Obviously, we could go to Birmingham, Nottingham, Leicester, Derby. Obviously, we've got quite a lot of big cities, but actually in Leicestershire, there isn't many jobs for language students, language graduates or translators. And I wasn't enjoying it that much, being stuck to a computer all day, translating and screen time all day, every day. And so that's when we thought, you know, we built this little business, ClubsComplete. We were using it to pay ourselves in holiday club time when we weren't at uni. So we were running the summer camps ourselves and like, you know, the holiday clubs, winter camps.
So probably a good time to circle back on that. I know you kind of not glossed over it, but like, yes. So this is at sixth form school when you first, because normally we go through the journey and employment and kind of the stepping stones to get to kind of leadership positions, etc. for some of our guests. But for yourselves, you were straight into launching your business at 16. So was that 16, 17 years old?
17. So it was in...
How did that come about?
Obviously, you've got your 2 years in sixth form. So I was in like year 12, and I basically just got in touch with a local primary school to our school and said, like, do you want me to come in and do some like after school sessions for the children in Spanish? I'm studying Spanish at the time, you know, to get my kind of practice Spanish, get it better. And, you know, I think when you teach it to somebody, it really like instills the foundations of your knowledge yourself. So I wanted to do that in practice. So I offered that and like on a voluntary basis. And then after the first 6-week block, they were like, you know, we can pay you to do this. What other subjects can you do? So then I started doing Spanish, French, dance and drama, like after school sessions in the school, like 1 a day. And it was back in a time where primary schools all worked in like clusters where it was like they had extracurricular coordinators. So the extracurricular coordinator came out, just happened to be in the school one day when I was doing the session. And just really took to it and was like, this is amazing. This is a really good opportunity for the children. They're really engaged with it. It's really fun. I'm the lead for the 12 local schools in the area. Can you do this in all of these 12 schools? And
what did you say? You just like, yeah, of course I can.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I can. But it won't be me in all of them. So I filled my time like doing like before school, lunchtime, after school, evening, tuition, like through the evenings and stuff. And then obviously got Stacey started involved in it as well. And like, you know, it's quite good because normally when you're when you start a business, like if you read the book, The E-Myth, it's like says about, when you're like the technician in the business, you are the business. So, for example, if you're like a nail technician and you're the person doing the nails, if you're off, you don't earn anything because you're the person that you are the business. So anyone in a business always wants to go, I would love to like clone myself. I can do that again. So obviously I had that opportunity, I didn't need to do that. I was just like, actually I've got another one of me that can do all of these subjects too. So then Stacey came on and we just filled both of our time. I didn't join the business till about a year, 1 year in.
But you're still in college at this point, right? Or sixth form, sorry.
Yeah, doing it around it. Literally, we were like missing lessons for it and everything.
But technically you're kind of, well, if you're studying languages, right, there's kind of studying it, so if you're teaching.
Yeah, we started getting a lot and, we started missing lessons and stuff, but it was just having to like pick up in our own time, studying outside of that and then like, just going for it with the A-levels. We did a gap year before we went to uni, so we were able to build it a bit more. We launched our first summer camp. We had 70 children walk through the door. Oh. We were like, whoa, okay, this is a bit bigger than what we thought. I mean, is
that when you knew you had something then at that point? Was it that?
Yeah, we knew there was
like, we can do this.
Yeah, but then back then there was like the internet wasn't really like a thing, and like you couldn't pay online for the services, and it was very much leaflets and things. So people, believe it or not, would used to get a leaflet. We'd like print these leaflets off on Microsoft Publisher, and honestly they were awful. And then we didn't have a website, so we'd go and leaflet outside the schools and in the local towns, and then people would actually post checks through our mum and dad's door of our house to book. So we went from there. And then
did you have the business? Can you get a business account at 17? I don't know if that's possible, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had the business account, and then we gradually built up, and our cousin got into web development pretty really early. So he was like, oh, well, I'll build you a website. I mean, he's younger than us, and he was just like, yeah, I'll build you a website. So did as a website. Obviously, we still couldn't take payments, but it was just like a landing page, like, this is who we are. And then like paying online became a thing, and social media became a thing, and it just, everything just became a lot easier. Like, you don't need to actually pay someone to go and leaflet out anymore. Like, you share it on Facebook and it just goes viral. So schools didn't even have email addresses in 2007. It's mad. Or websites, like now it's so much easier. You can send an email to all these schools and get all this business on, but it was like never like that. So it was more about going in, visiting them, giving them brochures for like for the business.
I'm interested in that, like kind of that moment. A lot of young people, 16, 17, 18, might have different pressures from their parents. It feels like yours would have been, I guess, receptive or even encouraging to that. Like you said with your dad, with that global outlook, and if your mum's from a language background, were they encouraging you in terms of pushing you to be more entrepreneurial or start and launch the business, or was kind of make sure you get a degree as well?
Yeah, so like they were very much pushing the degree. They were very, so our mum's like more like an academic, like, you need to go and do this, like learn the languages, get the qualifications. And our dad's like, don't really need qualifications for a lot of girls. Like, you'll be absolutely fine, go and work for yourself. But I'm not going to give you loads of money to start it. Like, if you want to start something, you work hard, you get your investment yourself. If you need investment for the business, and you do that, and then like I'll help you, like, coach you down the line. If it grows to a size where it becomes like a massive corporation, what that he had in the end before he sold his business. And so he's a bit more relaxed. He's like, you don't need qualifications to do anything. And we are now of like, I really value someone that's got a qualification that's like, relevant to come on board the business, but there's no way that I would, in an interview, disregard someone that hadn't got that, depending on their experience and like their values as a person and stuff. We kind of, take around and look at their overall package.
Yeah, I love that. So you've obviously wrapped up university with those gap years. So those gap years are obviously really relevant to the business. I was curious to ask, in terms of when you were out on those gap years, obviously you're learning, really progressing with your language studies, but did you see anything out there? And was it Spain you went to? Was it just Spain?
Yeah, we went to Madrid. We lived in Madrid and we were working for another business. We were, just like serving coffees and things like that. But
right. It was, I was thinking about education side. Did you see, there's language, but did you see anything in terms of, right, this is how they teach out there, this is how things are set up, that you brought back and kind of used in the business? Or was it more just, No,
it was really more like the language acquisition for us, which is why we wanted to live in Madrid. Like, it's a lot easier to do a degree in Spanish when you're nearly fluent in it already. So like, go there, live there, like get it behind you a bit. I think through it all as well, it was, we very much like to do things like quickly, get things underboard, not underway. And obviously learning language isn't something that you can do quickly. And we were like being very patient with it, but it was just not fast enough. So we thought, well, we need Spanish and we need it quick. So we're going to go to Madrid where nobody speaks English, live with people that don't speak English, work, travel, like just everything, immerse ourselves within that language so that we gain a proficiency in it quicker, because we knew that, degree is 4 years. I haven't got 4 years to wait. I need to teach, the children are getting better and better. I need to get better quick. I need to learn quicker. So we did. And obviously it helped with earning. Obviously, it was a minimum wage. We were broke, but we weren't paying ourselves on the business because, our dad had said to us, the money isn't there. You can't pay yourself. There's costs going out of your business. We were paying other people and we weren't paying ourselves to work the holiday clubs, and everything that we were doing, we weren't getting paid for. So we actually didn't get paid until we graduated, believe it or not, from our own business.
Right, but you've just been reinvesting what profits there were.
Yeah, so anything that we did, so the clubs, they were even for when we was at sixth form, they were paying us £50 an hour to do these clubs, which obviously when you're 17, you're okay, wow, if we'd have had it, we probably would have lost a little bit of control in terms of money management and stuff like that, because obviously you're 17 and you're I don't know, don't care with all this money. And so what we did is let it all in the business and let it kind of bump up. And then we worked every single time we were off uni, we came back, worked holiday clubs, but we worked it for free. We had other student loans and stuff. We had other jobs, there's student loans. And I worked at a hotel. I worked in a bar in Norwich, in Manchester. And then when we came back, I was still working in a hotel 7 till 2. And then I would go and do my after school club after the 2 o'clock, unpaid, even though I'd already just done, I'd done my paid work and then I was doing my volunteer. And people were like, why are you doing this? And we just knew there was something there. And it was just put everything into it. We had no bills, we shared a car between us. We were living with our parents. So we had the student loans to be able to survive. So it was more about putting our time in for free. And we just knew it would pay off. I think it's a lot it's about work ethic, isn't it? We have quite a strong work ethic, and, we're just about everyone, when you're at uni, they're going, okay, you want to do a degree and you're working in a bar and you keep leaving lectures on the phone because you've got a client on the phone. I had the office number diverted to my mobile because we couldn't afford to have to work in the office. Yeah. So then I'm hello complete, walking out of lectures, and they're you're going to hit burnout and stuff, which I get it. You have to put yourself first, but equally you don't get anywhere without having a bit of hard work.
No, definitely. I mean, at that age as well, you've got all the energy to. All
exactly.
The energy
Yeah. You've got nothing to lose either.
You're not going to do it then.
Yeah, exactly. You don't even have one.
So you finished university, then obviously at that point, was that a case of sitting down and saying, right, we want to scale this and if we can
yeah,
go
so
to the
I
next level?
don't think we've ever sat down. Yeah, we don't really sit down with each other, have meetings, roll with it. Yes, I did a 3-year degree. So I basically I had to go to University of Alicante for 1 semester rather than doing the full Erasmus, because that was the only university in the UK that did the 3-year degree, because you normally have to do a full year abroad. But that's why I picked it, because I thought I haven't got this 4 years. I need to get back out to this business. So after the 3 years, I graduated. I think we had maybe 25, 30 staff at the time I came out of uni.
So you were already employing 25 to 30 staff at that point?
Yeah.
Great. And this is just me being curious. Those staff, were they kind of employed, or was it kind of like a agency model with freelancers?
No, they were employed.
PAYE stuff?
Yeah, we had, by that time we was in the studio, I had administrators working in the office, payroll. I had coaches that are out in the field, they were all on our payroll as well, properly employed. We had the odd couple of coaching companies that we were freelance and worked with that we could manage ourselves and stuff. But so I was due to graduate in I think 2012, and the Christmas before that. So basically what happened was, our dad's godson got involved with the business. When we went to uni, we were look, we need someone that we trust. He's a sports coach, he can go and do all this coaching that we've got. He's older than us as well. I think he was maybe 3 or 4 years older than us. So we were look, he's a good face for the business as well. Because obviously when you're 17 and you're trying to go into school to sell stuff, they're are you serious? I mean, and interviewing people, we were laughing. Yeah. People are oh my God, you're not only lucky you're a female business, but you're also 17 as well. So he was a better face for the business for early days. So we gifted him shares of the business and he managed it basically. So he managed the coaches club. He was the face of it around here. So just in the Christmas while I was due to graduate, I got his resignation when I was in Norwich on an email, and I was that came out of the blue. Literally, he's not even said that he's unhappy or anything. That's strange.
Especially being kind of shareholder director level.
Exactly.
Kind of
I was this is crazy. I don't know what's wrong with him. I was speaking to him every day, coaching him through what he should be doing next and everything. I was literally in constant communication with him. And then I just got this at 11 o'clock at night. So I was okay, right, I need to go back to Leicestershire and see what's happening. So I got in the car, came back, and I walked into the office, and literally it was barren, to the point that he took Everything. That pen's gone.
Oh, sorry. All right, he's cleared it.
It's gone. He's cleared it. Like, he's cleared the whole lot.
I should have got my popcorn for this one. Go on.
Yeah. So he's cleared the lot, and he's also cleared the bank account. So it's payday, it's Christmas. We were like, happy Christmas. Yeah. Can't pay our staff. I think all in all, we lost about 60 grand from it. But so then, I basically tried to give him a call and was like, what's the crack? What's happened here? And I think he just saw how quickly the business was growing and wanted it all 100% shares of it, and obviously knew that wasn't possible. Like, obviously I started the business, he couldn't do that, it was never going to be able to get rid of me. So he wanted that, and he just saw the money kind of build. Obviously he wasn't factoring in things like, that belongs to that man, or that's corporation tax savings or whatever. It wasn't all just there to be had. And so I basically had a meeting with him, sat him down and said, look, I'm not going to press charges for it as long as you transfer your shares back in. Because I called Stacey and I was like, what do you want to do? Because he's bankrupted the company. We can't afford to pay the staff. We can't afford to pay the rent.
So he's left, stripped the office and emptied the bank account.
Yeah, and took some of our clients and staff. We were literally driving around. Like, he was driving around all of our clients, and we were following him. Like, literally, we look at the visitor book in the school, and it'd be like, his name has been here like half an hour before, and we were just trying to say to our clients, like, please just bear with us. Like, we know we've not been present, but we still own the business, and this is what this guy has just done to us. Like, please don't sign with him. We lost, I think, 3 clients and probably 4 staff who'd gone with him, who'd obviously built the relationship, which is obviously, don't blame them. To be fair, he employed them. Like, we didn't know them. Yeah, it was fine. But it was just really, really difficult time. Yeah. And then we sat down together and we were like, you can either completely give up now because we don't have the money. So we just literally dissolve the company, forget it, and write it off as a bad job. And at that point, it would have been quite easy to do that, because it's just like, you know what, give up. That was a little hobby. Actually, I've just qualified as a translator, or I'm about to finish my degree now. Just go into that and just literally write it off. Or we actually give this a really good fight, but it's going to take some building to get back. And we were like, you know what, one more go. Let's give it another go.
So did you recoup your funds then?
Yeah, so I sat down with him and had a meeting, and I was like, look, I'm not going to press the charges for, like, obviously he'd like signed checks in my name and all sorts, like took out loads of drafts in my name. There was like a lot of a lot of fraud. But so I said to him, look, I'm not going to press charges for anything. This is the situation. All I want is your shares. Because by that time he owned a third of the business. So that was worth more to me, even though the business at the time was bankrupt. So like, literally it wasn't worth anything at that point, but it was worth more to me in the long run to get that back. And honestly, if he owned 33% of it now, like, well, I would literally be really furious. So it'd be worth a lot more. So I just had that conversation. I said, literally, forget the money, keep it, literally have it. It's fine. I'll get a loan. We didn't recoup the funds, but we got the shares in exchange for it. So he got a kind of good deal. He got the money. He went in competition. He's still in competition. Now. It's called Club Zone, and he's just it's a more local kind of thing that he manages. He still does the coaches himself. He's not like big, hasn't got that many staff, and just does it all himself kind of thing on like a self-employed basis. It's just kind of like a small time thing for him, and that's enough, and that's what you can kind of cope with. So So
you referenced the E-Myth book earlier on, and I was going to ask you, because normally entrepreneurs find that book when it's like kind of crisis stages, and they think, everything's on top of me, and I need to find out what I should have done. But it sounds like, obviously I was going to ask you that, but then you come with this story, which is even bigger crisis. But was that the case in terms of like at that point you've got the second wind and you've got something not to fight for, but like you really got a big motivation to build things back up again? Was it then when you just went after it again, or were you like methodical? Like, let me start researching in terms of creating a business to sell. Really like much. There wasn't like much method in it. The madness. It was literally fight for your life. Like save as many clients as we can, save as many staff as we can. I think at that point it was like, that was the Christmas 2012. Then obviously start rebuilding from the January. I had some time off to be like, oh my gosh, what's just happened? And then from then, I was actually living in Italy at the time with my degree. I went to university in Italy for 6 months as part of my Erasmus with my degree. And then I was due to be going to Spain, to Marbella, to be a translator there because you have to do 6 months in each country. And I chose to work in Marbella because I needed the money rather than go to university. So I was doing that. And then I actually took a second job because, money-wise needed it. So I took a second job translating in the evenings for another company. And she happened to say to me, like, what is this on your CV? It says you're a company owner. Like, why are you trying to work for me in the evenings? So I explained everything to her. She was a Spanish lady, and she was just like, look, this would be insane. Like, if you could bring it to Marbella, like, we have
such a huge like expat community. Like it's really international. So we've got like not only Spanish children that, you know, could learn English from you, but you've got English children that could learn Spanish and vice versa. And like you could do this like on a big scale here. So I rang Kerry, and obviously this one we were just rebuilding. So we both had a bit of fire in us to like absolutely like crack it once and for all. Yeah. And I said, look, this woman that I'm working for like is saying we should bring it over here. She's saying, you know, we could get into her children's primary school. She'll help us do it. You know, she can take the bookings at her office for us. And Kerry was like, yeah, let's do it. So
what was the model there? Was that like a licensing model, or did you go out there and set up a...
No, we were helping up. I was living there anyway, so it was quite easy for it to happen. I was going to be there anyway until the June. So we were like, if we do a summer camp, I'm there the whole like build up, and then we'll work it ourselves in the July. So I'll go from literally living there to working in the summer there, and then I'll go back to uni in the September. So we did. We launched this camp. We had 120 children a day. I flew back from the camp in the first week to graduate, took the flight again the next day to finish the camp.
Oh, you just came into the UK to get your graduation?
Yeah, and it was absolute madness. Made loads of mistakes, things that we learned from a lot because it was our first thing like internationally, and everything over there works very, very different. Our pricing model was probably not appropriate. It was probably too cheap, which is why we got so many children. But we made a significant amount of money for being age 23 and still being at uni. And then from then, just out of pure coincidence, like there was a head teacher that came and brought his child from another local school, but that was an international private school. And he was like, what you are doing is amazing. He was English. He was the only English client, the only English person we saw all summer. And he was like, you're amazing. Like, I love what you're doing. So he got us a meeting in with the like directors of that school. And then we took that school, and then that led to a lot of other things in terms of expansion within that was like an international schools group. So then we picked up schools from all over the world from being recommended. But once we got in that one, it was like, right now we can pick schools up in Malaga, in Barcelona, in Madrid, and like everywhere.
So just a couple of questions on that one. Obviously, I want to look at kind of the delivery model, how you can operationally manage that. But the camps is intriguing to me. So obviously a lot of our listeners and guests have been they're running sports camps, sports activity camps. What makes yours different? I mean, is it language based? Is it activity based? Maybe at that stage?
So what we do is language immersion. Okay. So that just literally means we have native English staff, teachers that we either ship from the UK, or we employ them in Spain. Obviously, there's a lot of expats where we are. And we contract them to work. They are doing all these sports from literally football to cricket, like obviously English sports that Spanish children wouldn't necessarily like have experience, like rounders and things like that. So just like what we would call a standard activity camp in the UK, we're doing it over there. But for them, it's language immersion because they are coming into an English-speaking environment, and they are picking up language. What they can learn in 7 weeks is absolutely phenomenal. We like use the activity as like the vehicle for the language immersion. So like they're just doing the activity, having fun, not realising, hang on a minute, this is a completely different language. But they're having so much fun that they don't actually realise that they're learning so much. We have like keywords like per hour that obviously the coaches and the teachers use to like immerse them into that language, so that there's like 5 keywords per session. So there's like all like kind of methodology to it. And then we also, for children that are like, no acquisition of English whatsoever, we offer like buffer kind of English lessons as well as part of the camp. That's small because they need to be able to at least access, the activities.
For yourselves, I'm assuming that all the kind of resources things in the early days, you probably wrote them all, right? In terms of lesson plans.
We wrote them all.
Yeah. Schemes of work.
We wrote them all, and then obviously we're not sports kind of inclined. Like we like, dance, we did all of that ourselves. But then sports is huge. It's absolutely massive. And we saw that in the UK, but also in Spain. And the facilities were amazing. We haven't got to use them. So we just employed people that could give us that element of, knowledge. And that's what it's all about when you're building your team. It's employing people that are better than you at something else and bringing that to your business. Like, it's not all about being the best at everything. It's actually, no, I'm not great at that. Let's get someone who is better than me, that is more intelligent than me, that's got a better degree than me, that is a qualified teacher. I'm not, that's got a master's in whatever it is that we need, and getting those resources, tapping them in, and then letting them head up a department and giving the people the resources and the responsibility to head up a department and to lead that section of your business.
Yeah, and that's the ideal approach. I'm just wondering how long did it take you to kind of trust someone again? So after you've had that experience, and obviously that's the way to do it: empower people, let them build their own department, and kind of have that entrepreneur
I think
culture.
We learned a lot from that, and don't get me wrong, it was very difficult. We're like tied to the business as well. Like I'm not joking you. Like we used to work the breakfast clubs like 7:30 till 9, go into the office till 3, go back to the school 3:15 till 6, go back to the office until maybe 9, 10 at night. And we did that Monday to Friday for probably 3 or 4 years after. Yeah, we didn't kind of let anyone have the reins. But then what we learned from that was the structure needed improving. And if the systems were robust enough, there wouldn't be the opportunity to do what he did. So it was the removal then of, the ability to be able to do that. So we just then put robust systems in, and that took time. And the systems that we put in 2013 obviously weren't strong enough foundations-wise to build, a global business that could then be franchised off, that could trade internationally. And they weren't strong enough. So actually it was during lockdown where we sat down and restructured the entire thing. So I automated everything. So many manual tasks that were being done. I just automated everything. We saved so much money. We made 2 staff redundant, and we're still not re-employed in those positions because we just removed all of the manual work. And I think that is a massive thing for us. Like, the systems are there. Like, if you've got the right systems, people will come and go. That's what people do. They will always change jobs, and you can't rely on the people. Like, it has to be the systems. If you have the systems in place, then the people can run the systems. Anyone can run the systems if the system's there. Yeah,
and that's obviously allowed you to scale. So I'm curious. So you said that work was done 2013, those systems. I'm assuming what normally happens when you grow, and it sounds like a really rapid rate, those systems tend to break every few months.
Oh, exactly. Honestly, probably every 6 months, we're even still going again now, because something that, since we've now opened in the Middle East, some of the stuff that we've put in place for Spain and the UK doesn't fit for Bahrain and Dubai, for example. So you've just constantly got to update the systems, the processes, the manuals that we're using, because like we say, we can't rely on people. If a person goes, okay, right, either maybe someone goes on long-term sick leave, or maybe someone's pregnant, or maybe someone's leaving the business and they've got a new job. You never want to be in the vulnerable position of, oh no. Actually, that's fine where you handbook, as long as your handbook's up to date, you know what your KPIs and your systems are all there for your job, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that growth period, 2013, like you said, up to lockdown. What did the business look like, let's say, going into lockdown? And kind of don't need to dwell on the kind of obviously challenges of that. But from that 7-year period, how different did it look then in 2020?
I think for us, that 7-year period was a rat race. Lockdown was a wonderful opportunity to sit down and reflect, because we hadn't done that. And people were saying to us, oh, girls, you're smashing it, you're doing really, really well. And we're like, oh, well, whatever, we just winning this. We didn't have time to think, oh, actually, this is pretty good. We actually hadn't ever sat down and been like, do you know what, well done. You actually have done okay. And that's something to be proud of. And we hadn't ever said well done to each other, or actually sat down and reflected on our practice, what could we do better? And there was no time. There was no time to sit down. And then all of a sudden, they announced the school shut, and it was just wow, didn't see that coming. The whole time we were saying, no, don't shut schools. And then it was oh, okay, they're going to shut the schools. This is a problem. But do you know what? It was a good opportunity to reflect and actually to restructure and to change things and to be better for the future. When are we ever going to get that opportunity again? And the world just stops and goes, look, you've got the time now to reflect on everything that you've been doing, and to spin it on its head, do something different, change what you're doing and make yourself better. There's never that point where the world stopped spinning, and it did effectively. We were all stuck there, and
we didn't say this at the time.
No, at the time we were pulling our hair out. Yeah,
I had a baby 2 weeks before lockdown, and then got locked down with a newborn baby. Had this business, and obviously on top of this business, we've got another 4 businesses as well. So we we're responsible for maybe 280 odd people's mortgages, lifestyles, everything, and had to make redundancies and stuff over Zoom, and all these different things. So it was a huge challenge. But looking back on it, we have had the chance to really make all of the businesses a lot better, a lot more streamlined, a lot more systemized. And I think it's given us a chance to be able to come back to work, for example, like me after maternity leave part-time, because we've now got that opportunity to be able to do it, because we've got the solid foundations in our businesses.
I think as people as well, we're quite up for change, and we're very adaptable people. So now, even we did a group interview last night, and one of the candidates said that what if COVID came out of it? And obviously we need to be aware of that, and our systems need to be robust, and our contracts need to be super tight, which they are, and they were even in COVID times. We were able to still be able to, if we wanted to stand by our terms and charge our clients, we could have done. So they were strong enough to withhold that. And if furlough wasn't there, then our staff would have been well protected. But we are very adaptable and we're very, we very much like change. And for us, that's okay, that's now gone. And there's no point dwelling in the past. There's no, what if, there's no point worrying about something until it happens. If it happens again, we'll deal with it, and we'll deal with it like we did last time, because that worked. And people, a lot of us, I say that to us a lot all the time, because we're like walking in, we're like, right, take plan, no, hang on. We've got this lead and we're going here, we're flying here tomorrow, can you get me a flight? And they're like, oh my God, are you joking? But I think that's the way that you actually achieve a lot, because if you're so stuck on, oh no, this is always the same, I don't want to have any changes, then nothing changes, you don't cry.
So I've got a couple of questions in terms of, I'll say one's a bit more personal, but in terms of the business setup, I know you kind of just glossed over 4 other businesses and everything else. I'm assuming some of those are kind of synergistic with what you're doing with ClubsComplete.
Yeah, so we got ClubsComplete, and then we've got Primary PA, which is like teaching consultancy. So that's all the stuff during curriculum time. ClubsComplete is all the extracurricular stuff. Cool. Then we've got 2 nurseries, early years stuff. So that's also off the back of like the stuff that we've done abroad with ClubsComplete, the language immersion. We're doing that the other way around, but with early years children in the UK. So we've got Spanish day nurseries that are like in the Midlands, that the children are learning, like monolingual children, just like English children going in and then coming out with 2 languages before they go to school. So they just like learn Spanish through immersion. So 2 of those. And then we have a property company as well, which is totally not related.
Nice. So the global aspect, so like you said, you mentioned that you're working out in the Middle East now, and obviously the Spanish you started in Spain, but how is that growing? Can you kind of frame up for the listeners to know like the scale of what you mentioned number of employees, but what's the scale, kind of footprint, and maybe your model for expansion on that?
So our business in Spain now, we had to separate it down. So it's now like its own, like ClubsComplete SL separate business in Spain because of like Brexit and everything else. We used to restructure the way that we did that. So it's not kind of like, it's owned by the UK ClubsComplete, but it's a separate thing. And that is the same size as the UK. So it really has grown, like it's taken off over there. We've got a manager out there. She lives in Spain. She's bilingual. And she manages the day-to-day of the country. And then with the stuff in Bahrain and Dubai, we have the same kind of setup, like a Middle East operations manager. It's smaller there. We work with, in Bahrain, we work with the British School of Bahrain, which is like one of the best schools in Bahrain, and it's a huge, huge school. So we have a huge contract for like Easter, summer camps and stuff that we do over in Bahrain, and we've got an office in Bahrain and one in Dubai. But with Dubai, it's mainly kind of like after school clubs, rather, obviously it's so hot in Dubai in the summer and a lot of the expats come out. So in the summer, we take Bahrain as the Middle East camps that we run in the summer, and we don't run anything in Dubai in the summer. And then we go back to running the after school clubs in term time.
And I guess Middle East, do you have to have a local partner, Emirati partner who's, because
so we've got that, the Emirati partner. And then obviously visas, we have to go to Dubai once a year, once every 12 months. Because we had to that's really difficult.
Get to buy residency.
Yeah, to get to buy residency. So we had to do that. So like in our passports, we've got like the page where obviously we are residents of Dubai if we wanted to live there. Because obviously owning a business, we had to go through the visa thing, which was long.
Yeah, if anyone wants to open a business in Dubai, it's really hard.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, it's really expensive and really hard. It's worth it because of the like margins and stuff that you get out of clubs that you can charge quite a lot. And in Spain, actually, it's harder than you think. It's harder than you think it's going to be. Especially now with all of these changes.
What's the change with Brexit, right?
Yeah. So if any listeners have any questions, like we run an Instagram page, which is Business Leaders UK, and we put posts on that all the time about like tips for like international, because it's so hard. Like we could not find a resource, which is why we set that Insta page up, because there was no resource online. Like, how do we set this company up in Dubai? How do we set up an operation in Spain? And how does that work in terms of like tax and in terms of like our personal tax and residency and visas, and like how does it work? And then just nothing.
Like you try and Google it, like half the stuff's in Arabic, stuff that's in English is you're not 100% sure. It's really unclear. So it's like, is it in a free zone? Is it not? What does a free zone mean? Like, do you need an LLC? Do you need an Emirati shareholder? Like, what do you need? And what's the best setup? Like, does it need to be a branch of the UK company? Does it need to be a separate thing? Like, and what are the tax implications on that? So
no one tells you
it's
how
not easy
to do it.
So you just found your way with that in terms of maybe found someone.
We were really lucky because we had
the Department of International Trade.
The Department for International Trade have helped us a lot. We'd already opened in Spain, and we've been in Spain for like 6 years. By the time I even found they were a thing, but they are really, really good. So anyone that's got a business in the UK that wants to trade internationally, you can just get in touch with your local DIT hub, and they will literally give you leads. They'll like give you databases of people that like might want your services, or they'll like try and chase you up for you. They'll like, I've got this contact that has got this school in this area or whatever. So
I had a meeting with the DIT in Dubai, and she kind of suggested the best setup for us and whatever. And then she kind of linked us in to get some meetings with like a couple of people. I think with Spain, we just found our way like through mistakes. Yeah, it's easier though, because when you speak Spanish, it's a lot easier. Whereas in Dubai, it's like, oh wow, what are you doing here? So it's a lot harder. Whereas the Department of International Trade helped us, and we also have a friend that had set up his business in Spain and in Dubai. So we were like, okay, right, we know what we're doing in Spain, and we kind of helped him with the logistics in Spain, and then the same thing happened in Dubai. Like he'd already done it. So yeah, I think tapping into people that you know, if you don't know anyone, that's why I set up the business page on Instagram. Yeah, we have people message all the time like, this is what I'm doing, I've got a question, and we just did that. Like, you know, it's not a kind of income stream. It's just a page to help people, because there is not that resource out there.
Yeah,
just international stuff, but questions, any random questions about those types of small business or like anything.
The question I referenced earlier on, a bit more personal, is you come across, your energy is fantastic and like so much to knowledge to share and experience. Where does your drive come from in terms of like to keep pushing, and obviously on all fronts, lots of different businesses, super successful already? Where's that come from?
I think each other, we really like kind of bounce off each other.
So it's not competitive, it's like obviously
no. So we get our energy definitely from each other. Like if one needs motivating, then the other one will pick up. And the same thing as stress. Like we've both got quite good the stress thresholds now, but you know, if one of us is like, I actually cannot deal with it, the other one will just do it, and then we're like, okay, right, we'll swap now, like, you know, later on, like that, we'll have a break. Luckily, when there's like two of you, it's a lot easier to have. Like, I always think when someone says, oh, I've run a business on my own, I'm like, I just don't know how you do that, because it seems to me really hard. I think like each other, but then also since we've obviously got our own children, and since we've had our own children, like we knew about children before, and it's all we've ever known, and teaching is all we've ever done, and providing activities is all we've ever done. But then having your own child just massively puts a spin on that. Like obviously our children are in our nurseries, so our opinion of those nurseries and our standards and our expectations are extremely high. Like our own children are attending. Like it must be perfect. There are not room for mistake. When you're selecting staff, they're going to be looking after your own child. So so it's like every child. You know, now you see every child as your own child in that nursery, because it must be good enough for all of them. And I think we've learned a lot from having our own children, like just in terms of everything that we do. Like it's so relevant to like our business model, and we've learned a lot from them already. And I think that's like the nurseries as well. Like our boys are bilingual, so our boys speak Spanish and English because we speak Spanish to them at home, and their dads are both English, and they go to the nursery as well. So we're then really excited about what they can like achieve. So so my little boy's 2, and he's only just started like talking over the past like 6 to 12 months, and the stuff that he's managing to come out with now, you're like, if he can do that, imagine what we can do with all these other children. So it's like a real motivator to keep going. Yeah,
definitely a great why. I guess for me, I'm interested in kind of your opinions and what you formed over the time running the business, your kind of approach to leadership in terms of, you spoke about leading the team, obviously systemizing things, and maybe that's come with, when you have kids, you have to slow down a little bit. So like the 90-hour, 100-hour weeks, or maybe more for the 4 years, can't do them anymore. What would you say is the kind of key to running a successful organisation?
I think for us, you need to get the right people in to be able to rely on. Like we've got managers in all of our businesses. So having those key people and looking after those people very well is fundamental. But I think also like just continuing to learn. Like we have no qualifications in business. You know, we've never studied it.
Or childcare.
Or childcare for that matter. Like we're not qualified in that area. Like all of it has come from experience. But we're massive advocates for like books and like business books, and like we've read so many of them and taken tips from what you learn from those books and those courses that you do. There's like so many resources online, like webinars and courses that you can do now, and we kind of feed that throughout all of our management teams, but also like all of our staff as well. Like never stop learning. Like it's a huge thing for us.
Like in terms of our management style as well. If you read the book, The Rules of Management.
Yeah. That's like our management style. So we like really will like empower the people to make their own decisions. If someone comes to us and be like, right, oh no, this is what problem I've got. Rather than being like, what you need to do is this and that. We're like, okay, just give me 2 options on what you think you might do about that first. Can you give me 2 possible solutions? And they're like, oh, hang on a minute. And it forces them to think. And then sometimes it will mostly be one of those 2 things that they said. And then sometimes we're like, hang on, there are really good options. You might want to try this, and then they'll know for next time anyway. So yeah, they normally come up with the answers themselves. And it's about pushing them. I think it's about putting the right resources available for them and giving them the authority to be able to make those decisions, empowering them like to make decisions and like make mistakes. that's fine, because you will learn from them. Like if you just let them try and give them the opportunity to take that responsibility, okay, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But at the end of the day, then they're not coming back to us and saying, oh, well, you said, you made that decision, you take ownership for that decision. It didn't work out this time. How can we evaluate that and avoid it in future? Because they're more likely to actually learn from their own mistakes rather than always coming up the ladder to try and get answers from managers or from us. And I think there was it might be the 4-hour work week. I can't remember which one it is, but it says like any decision with under a certain amount of pounds, like empower your people, like whatever that is relevant to your business, depending on how big you are. Like a decision that's like can be made, like, I don't know, for us, maybe under £1,000, like, X amount of people can make that decision, without asking any questions at all. And then obviously, that can be higher for managers or lower for, kind of other staff.
Yeah, I love that. So empowering them to obviously take control of the situation.
The thing is, because we've made a business, and then we've made another business, and we've made another one. We've had to make the business, manage the people. Right, we need a manager in here because we're starting this one. So we've every single project that we've got, we've been forced to let people roll with it and have the reins of our businesses, because we've been moving on to the next thing. So we've had to let them do it. We don't micromanage people because we physically couldn't. So
what's the next step? Or is it consistent expansion, or have you got another business idea, or maybe you don't want to share it? But what's kind of next stage for yourself?
We've got obviously the products and suppliers. Yeah, I think with international, we will continue expanding.
You mentioned franchising before, because currently everything's owned, right? Wholly owned.
Yeah. So I think we will grow. The main thing is growing the franchise network, and obviously empowering people that want to have their own business but don't have the idea and don't where to start. Let them do a mini version of our business within a franchise. We want to be able to empower those people to do that. So selecting the right franchisees, growing that network, also expanding obviously internationally, and then down the line, once, I suppose, we might eventually want to sell some of our businesses. I bet once we've done that and we're at a point where we actually have got more time, then we would like to set up a business, help coaching and mentoring business owners. That would be right down the line. We have no time for that right now. But since we've done this Instagram page, we're actually, really enjoy speaking to these people. It's like yourself, conversations like this. You enjoy it and you want to hear people's stories and you want to be able to help them. And the amount of kind of mistakes that we've made and things that we've learned from in the past 15 years, it's an opportunity for other people to learn from. And so when they're asking for advice and being like, oh, what did you do about this? 9 times out of 10, we've done that. We've been there. They've got a t-shirt. If not, we can connect them with someone that we do know that has.
Stress, you mentioned it earlier on. So stress threshold. Do you have any type of routines or anything in terms of keeping yourself on top performance? I know you can obviously bounce off each other and you working really closely together, but is there anything you do? Obviously you mentioned reading, but is there anything else you normally turn to?
Yeah, I think we are very rigid with our time. So we time block. We only actually work 2.5 days a week each, because we've got young children. So we have to be so efficient when we're in. We work at 100 miles an hour and there are no distractions when we're time blocking. If we're in a meeting, I'm in a meeting, I've not got my phone, I'm speaking to you, I'm here, we've got my time. Once that meeting's done, I am doing my work and I'm time blocking, my door is shut and I'm getting my head down, because that's what needs to happen. So we have really kind of rigid default diaries that we stick to, because if not, it would be impossible. And I think that helps with the stress, because you think, you can't do everything. So actually Thursday morning is my morning to do nursery stuff or whatever it is. So that's got to wait till Thursday, because I can't physically, I'll get overwhelmed if it all happens on a Monday, for example. So time blocking, but also, outside of work, obviously we love yoga. We love everything to do with mindfulness. We're very spiritual and we like the gym, walking my dog, things like that, just getting headspace, because it is absolutely
and
crucial.
Also if you spending your time with your own children as well, it's so funny because their love seems so not stressed. So then you can't be stressed because they're just having an absolute breakdown over what did I say this morning? My little boy was having a breakdown this morning because he really wanted me to put his fingernails. Literally, this is the level of stress. And then you find it quite funny because you're actually, do you know what? That's a wake-up call.
Yeah, give you some perspective. Given that you're still time blocked, I know time's precious, so I'm going to ask you the last question. Normally have a bit of a reflective question and look back to when you first started, maybe. And if you could go back and give yourself that one piece of advice, whether it's business or kind of just life advice, what would you go back and tell yourself or tell each other?
I just think I'd say about embracing change. I think that the change thing, we've learned it. And when Mark did that with the whole, which was with the shareholder, I think for like months and months and months, I was like, why would that happen? Like, why would you do that? And he's so on about you're so reflecting on what's happened back in the past. You're not looking forward. So just being like that, something that's happened, you can't control. It's not going to change. So literally embrace the new situation that has now changed and embrace it with open arms. And I think like not taking things personally. I would say I'm very, very sensitive as a person. And obviously running a business, like life is pretty brutal. Like, you know, when you're at the top, and you are going to have people that, you know, perhaps dislike you, that leave your business for whatever reason, and not like taking clients or clients. You know, there's going to be people that are talking about you. That's going to happen, and people will leave your business, and it is not your fault. Even if it is, then take it with a pinch of salt. You know, you made a mistake. Like, so what? But I think for me, like when you have that first resignation of your big, like, you know, you're one of your like full-time members of staff that you really rely on. You take it personally. I don't care what anyone says. Anyone that wants to disagree with that is totally lying. You take it personally because it reflects on you. It's your business at the end of the day. And you then think to yourself, oh, could I have done this better? What did I actually do? And just not taking it personally. Like, people will come and go. You know, like the world moves around, so do people. And the sooner that you learn that in business, the better. And the more that you rely on your systems and your people, then you know, you're going to be more successful. I think, like I said earlier, having those key people and our key team, or, you know, the ones that we manage directly, are our core unit. Of course, if one of those left, like, you know, not obviously we wouldn't take it personally now with our experience, but we would be absolutely heartbroken. But it's looking after those core people. And then, you know, people that, you know, are doing part-time work for you, or that are quite far removed from you within the business being managed by the people, like, you can't control everything. People will come and go. And I think not taking things personally and not taking things too seriously, they're like, just don't worry about it.
I always think it's better for people to be speaking about you than not speaking about you. Then means you're doing something right, for sure. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at least you've got to give them something.
Any press is good press.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Kerry, Stacey, thanks so much for your time. I know you're so busy, and like you've outlined it, so I'm really appreciative that you give so much time and so much transparency. So thanks so much.
It was lovely to meet you, James. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us at coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram at coordinate_sports, or on my account at James_ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.